Hey guys, Liz here from the Nail Hub, and I am very excited to do another nail audit for you today. For those of you that are new to the Nail Audit and new to Nail Hub TV, the Nail Audit is a really cool playlist where we go through custom troubleshooting videos that are inspired by submissions from Nail Hub TV members. If you would like to submit your own nail audit request, all you have to do is go to thenailaudit.com, submit all of the information I request via my form, upload at least one video or picture, and if you don't have one, you can just upload whatever random picture you want with a detailed description of exactly what you're interested in learning about or what issue you're dealing with, and I will make a custom video to answer your troubleshooting question. Nail audits can be about troubleshooting, product knowledge, anything under the sun, so feel free to take advantage of that and submit your own nail audit request. Today's nail audit was brought to us from Kimberly, and Kimberly submitted this and asked me about flash curing. She said, "Hey Liz, how does flash curing work? Can the technique be used with opaque colors or only builder gels that have some transparency? When doing a full set of magnet nails, I'd like to set one in place before doing the next so the magnet doesn't distort the first nail. If I flash cure one finger, then move to the next, how long do I have to complete the application before going in for a full cure? I'm sure I'm overthinking this, but I've never seen someone address flash curing outside of full cover tips or dual forms. I don't have any photos or videos relevant to this question. I hope that's okay." All right, Kimberly. So to get into flash curing, let's first talk about what's actually happening during the polymerization process, because I think you understanding more about how polymerization works, which is the chemical process that hardens our product after it's exposed to UV light, that's going to explain a lot of this at a fundamental level, and then I'll also address all of your individual questions to make sure that we get that covered. Okay, in order to start this flash curing conversation, I want to do a quick review of what's actually happening inside of our gel when we expose it to UV light so that you get a better visual as to how flash curing works and how full polymerization should really look, okay? So if we look at a visual of what would be inside of our liquid gel, these little magnets that I have here represent ingredients inside of our gel polish. So this would be something that we would see maybe in a colored gel polish, anything, even if it's super pigmented. So we might have different pigments in here, and I put little 5 groupings just to show maybe these are pigments that are in here. So maybe we have some red and blue pigment that makes it into a purple gel polish. We have photoinitiators. So I put these little guys just to represent what photoinitiators are. And photoinitiators are basically a product that breaks down upon exposure to UV light, and it produces something called a free radical. A free radical then is released from this photoinitiator once it gets broken down by the UV light, and it goes and it looks for something to bond to. So these photoinitiators, these little yellow guys that I have here represented here on my table, these are the ones that create that start of the actual hardening process. So once these are exposed to UV light, they're going to kick off that curing reaction, that hardening process. When we flash cure, we are only giving these photoinitiators a little bit of the actual energy they need from our UV lamp in order to start the process. So if you think about it like half baking a cake, it's one of those things where we're going to end up with some unpolymerized product inside of it if we're just flash curing. So these chains here represent my monomers and my oligomers. So monomers, or even if you have something like dihema in your product, it's going to be 2 monomers that are linked together like this. If it was actual monomers like HEMA, HEA, HPMA, they would be individuals, okay? So they wouldn't be pre-bonded, but most gel polishes are going to have either just plain monomer, or they're going to have actual maybe dihema, di-HEA. And then you might also see formulas that have products called bis, HEA, HPMA, HEMA, any of that. So the bis means that we have these oligomer chains. They are pre-built structures where we've taken multiple monomers, pre-bonded them together, and now we only have to do a few bonds on the ends of these chains to actually create our hardened product, okay? So you can see my magnets already want to create these bonds. I'll separate them just a little bit more. The cool thing about oligomers is it creates less heat, and it also creates better curing because we only have to connect 1 point or 2 points on the chain, we don't have to connect all these individual little monomers. Every time we actually create a bond with that free radical from our photoinitiator, there's heat released as part of that chemical reaction. So you can imagine if we have tons of these little monomers here that all need to be bonded together and they're not pre-bonded, every time these come together and start to create chains, every single connection here, there's heat released. So when you have a high monomer gel, you're going to have more heat. You're also going to need to rely more on the photoinitiators to create enough free radicals for all of these bonds to be created. When we have an oligomer-based product that starts, like you'll see ingredients, like I said, with bis, hema, B-I-S, then we actually don't have to create as many bonds. So to start answering your question, Kimberly, an oligomer-based product is going to actually cure better, whether it be flash curing or full polymerization, than a product that has all of these monomers that need to be bonded. So if your gel polish or your hard gel or whatever you're using starts with just plain Jane HEMA or HPMA or HEA, that's going to be a high monomer content gel. If it starts with dihema or di-HEA or di-HPMA, it's going to have the 2 monomers pre-bonded, which cuts this at least in half when it comes to the bonds that we're creating. But if it starts with bis-HEMA, bis-HEA, bis-HPMA, then you're going to have more of an oligomer-based product, so this is actually going to cure better. Now, what happens when we flash cure? So I'm just going to utilize my little mini lamp here. When we flash cure, we're only putting our nails into the lamp for, let's say, 10 to 15 seconds. Just enough time for things to start to come together, but they're not actually going to be fully polymerized. Fully polymerized means that we don't have any more free-floating monomers or oligomers in the formula anymore. They've all been linked together. So essentially what flash curing would do is some of these photoinitiators would get active, they would break off and create that free radical, and the free radical would go and find these chains or these monomers and start to bond them together. Okay, so just to make this a little bit more accurate, I'll put the free radical in between. So our photoinitiator turned into a free radical, and now we've got these 2 things bonded together. However, we might have our pigment in here that also is bonded. But if we are flash curing, you'll notice that I still have some of these photoinitiators that have not been activated, and I still have some of my formula that has not fully bonded, okay? So once we go back into our lamp, then the idea is that we would reactivate these unreacted photoinitiators. They would get broken down by the UV light. They would go and seek out the rest of the chain, and they would actually start making more polymer chain as they get fully activated. Now, once the photoinitiators are all broken down, they will no longer exist. They'll all be free radicals. But the idea behind fully curing our product is that you're going to build a full chain and no more free floating anything is going to be in the product, okay? So this is when we talk about product being under cured or not fully cured to safe levels. The idea is we want to actually get this chain built and at least 75 or 80% or better of those free floating ingredients into these polymer chains to decrease that risk of things being out there, especially monomer. Since monomers are very easy to absorb into our skin, we want to make sure that those monomers are actually part of these polymer chains and that we don't have a bunch of monomer floating around in our product after we believe we've fully cured it, okay? So flash curing, for some of you that are curious about how flash curing works, we can do flash curing in a couple of different ways. Okay, so I just have my mini lamp here because it's a nice size to fit on my table, but you could use a full size lamp, you could do whatever you want. And then I'll also use the example of a flash curing lamp that's on a stand. And these are very common to use with full coverage tips, like Kimberly was saying she's never seen it outside of dual forms or full coverage tips. So this is an example of what we would do for flash curing. The reason why we would use this is because we need to hold something in place. So we would be holding something onto our nail, curing it just enough so that it stays in place and doesn't move around anymore. And then we would go in and we would fully cure our nails in our lamp, okay? So we would be holding this on there, and then I would fully cure this for the full time in my full power lamp. Our mini lamp is awesome because although it is small, it actually does produce enough energy to fully cure product. So that's something that's cool about if you're, a DIYer or you're just getting started or you want something that's more portable. Mini lamps are great for that. And you have to understand that not all mini lamps are able to fully cure. Like, for example, this guy does not provide enough energy to fully cure product, but it will be able to harden things and get them at least solidified enough that they will be held in place. Whereas this is going to make sure that we get to the point where all of our monomers, oligomers, pigments, free radicals, everything are all built into these polymer chains and we don't have any more free floating product, okay? There really is no time limit because those photoinitiators are just going to be sitting around waiting to be broken down into free radicals. There is not really a time limit, okay? So these guys, these photoinitiators, the only time they get broken down is when they are exposed to UV light. And if they aren't exposed to enough UV light or they don't get direct UV light exposure, then they aren't going to break down and create that free radical, okay? So that's why there's really no time limit on flash curing, but obviously we would want to make sure that we do that all in one service. And I personally recommend, just to avoid issues where you may have a solvent in your gel polish, you may have something else that might be causing a problem, you might want to make sure that you actually go back and fully cure those nails at the end of that hand is usually what I recommend, okay? So in my mind, the way I think about it is I'm going to be flash curing my nail. Like if I have cat eye gel or something, I'm going to be flash curing my nail. Then I'm going to do the next nail, flash cure it, next nail, flash cure it, next nail, flash cure it. And when I'm done with those nails, then I'm going to fully cure my whole hand. And it's a much more efficient way to do it because I can put all 4 fingers in my lamp. You could also do 5 and then put all 5 into a full-size lamp. But I recommend fully curing after you've done a hand of flash curing. Then you can move on to your other hand because this guy is fully cured. You know that everything is cured to safe levels. You've got that covered. Now you can move on to the other hand. Okay, so that would be my recommendation on timing, but there isn't really a set time limit for kicking off that polymerization reaction. Hypothetically speaking, those photoinitiators would just be sitting there waiting for UV exposure. Now, going back to what I was saying about flash curing with an actual lamp, with flash curing, we can either put our nails into the lamp for about a count of 10. Usually right when you start to feel the first semblance of heat is when your gel is starting to harden enough that you can take your nails out, okay? You could do that 1 finger at a time just to flash cure, get that, like Kimberly was saying, cat eye gel to just stay put so that when she does the magnet on the next nail, this one doesn't get moved. That's totally possible. But you could also, do 4 fingers at a time. If you were doing gel polish application, you could do all 4 fingers of gel polish application, flash cure, and then move on to something else. Or if you're doing nail art, flash curing is also a great way to just put things into place. Like if you're doing a complex nail art hand painted design, you can flash cure that into place and then continue to paint subsequent layers, okay? So flash curing essentially is just giving it a very short exposure of UV light, whether it be in your lamp or underneath one of those portable flash curing lamps. You can also use flash curing for other reasons. So this case that Kimberly's talking about, we're talking about utilizing flash curing to put things into place to keep things from moving around or changing while we're working on other fingers. We can also use flash curing to mitigate heat. So because every time one of these bonds is created, if we slow down the process of the bonds being created, then instead of having all the heat at the same time, we'll have just a little bit of heat, then a little bit of heat later, and a little bit of heat later, okay, is the way to kind of think about it. So we can also use proximity to our light source to slow down the curing process and mitigate that heat. So you could leave your nails out front of your lamp and just have the lamp shining. So if we're talking about proximity, we could keep our nails just outside where they're just getting a little bit of UV energy, then slowly inch our way in, slowly inch our way in, and go all the way in. Or the other thing you can do is you can put your fingers in, press the button, count to 10, maybe 15, depending on how thick the layer is or what type of gel you're using. And like I said, as soon as you start to feel just a teensy bit of heat on the nails, then you kind of know that things are starting to set up. Or if you can't feel any heat, I usually recommend, like I said, counting to 10 seconds. So we would do that, and then you can turn off the lamp and continue working. You can also, if you're working on clients, train your clients how to do this. So clients can learn how to put their nails in, count to 1, 2, 3, take them out, give it a 1, 2, 3 break at least to slow down the curing process for if we're talking about heat, and then go back in. Or you can also say, hey, I'm just going to have you go in for 10 seconds and then you're going to take your hand out and give it to me so I can continue working on what I'm working on, okay? So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to how we flash cure as far as the actual functionality of physically doing it. And there's lots of different equipment we can do, whether it be little flashlight lamps or mini lamps or our full-size lamp, and just, working with proximity or working with timing. But that is basically the mechanics of how that works, okay? So I hope this helps you understand a little bit more about that part of it. Now, the other question that Kimberly had was about opacity of product, and does opacity of product affect the ability to flash cure something? So here is the real rub. Highly pigmented gels need more photoinitiators in order to be able to kind of combat the amount of pigment that are in them, to make sure that those photoinitiators get the energy from the UV light, break down into those free radicals, and then go start seeking out building those chains with the monomers or the oligomers that we have in our gel formula. If the gel company does not customize their gel formula to match the level of pigmentation in their product, you are going to run into issues with different colors. So this is something that I always recommend you test if you're looking at investigating a new brand, okay? And this can be a little bit tricky, but the first thing I look for, like I said, is I usually look for an oligomer-based product. Oligomer-based products are going to cure better. They're going to cure cooler. They're just going to be overall a better product to work with because of the mechanics of what's inside of it. But there are also a lot of gels on the market that you're going to come across that you can use that have more monomer or those dimers, the di-hema, the two monomers already linked together. So we've got monomers, dimers, oligomers. The dimer brands, the monomer brands, those are going to require more photoinitiator because there's more monomers in them that all those little connections need to be made. And I usually recommend testing their most pigmented gel, okay? Usually one of the colors that I often find can create a lot of problems is yellow. The yellow pigment, especially highly opaque yellows like Crayola crayon type yellow or even neon yellows, those types of pigments tend to cause problems with the actual gel formula and require that the gel formula be customized a little bit to improve curing. A company that has thought about how pigment changes the curing process will actually have consistent curing across all of their colors. If you have a specific brand you're working with and a specific color just doesn't seem to cure as well as the other ones, that's usually a dead giveaway that the company is not customizing their formulas to work with all the different pigments. And that's usually a situation where you may want to go, I'm not sure I want to use this particular brand because they aren't actually taking that into consideration. That could mean that you end up with more free-floating monomers left over in the hardened product. And even though it appears to be physically hard, like I showed you, even at about 50% cure, which means we've only hardened and polymerized about 50% of those ingredients, the product will feel physically hard. To the naked eye, it will actually seem like we've cured our product, but we actually want to get that gel to probably 80% or better. So it's going to take it well beyond what we think has been hardened, and it's actually going to be something where we need to think about, even though we can't see those monomers, dimers, or oligomers, that 80% or more of them have been polymerized. That is going to greatly decrease the risk of those free-floating monomers from getting onto your skin, maybe potentially causing some problems. But even beyond the risk of allergies, it's just going to make sure that your product lasts longer, doesn't bubble and peel, doesn't prematurely wear down or have issues. it's one of those things where the allergy conversation has become very important because a lot of people are experiencing that. But well before we had the conversation of allergies, we wanted to talk about longevity of the product and making sure that things actually lasted 2 to 3 weeks rather than things getting prematurely worn down or chipping, peeling, bubbling, all of that stuff. So it also comes down to the actual quality of the service and making sure that things are lasting the way that we're anticipating that they're going to, okay? So test those more difficult colors like neon yellows, maybe Crayola crayon yellows, even highly, highly pigmented blacks or whites are great colors to test because those are colors, especially white or black. Black absorbs a lot of energy. Even if we wear, black out in the sun, black is one of those colors that absorbs a lot of energy into it. And because the pigment is going to be absorbing energy into it, it's actually going to be preventing those photoinitiators from getting what they need and helping, that's going to block that polymerization reaction from going off the way that we intended it to. So highly pigmented blacks are a great one to test. And like I said, usually the visual one, the dead giveaway visual one that's going to immediately start bubbling and peeling if it's not working properly are going to be those neon yellows, those Crayola crayon yellows, those highly opaque yellows. Those are going to be ones that you'll identify. And that's also why typically neon highlighter yellow colors are usually so watery that you have to put a white underneath it. The reason why that is because they have to dilute the pigmentation in order for the product to actually cure, but not all brands have that problem if they're actually customizing that base clear gel formula. If they're customizing that, then they can start to tweak pigmentation to make sure that they get the same expected opacity, they get the same color payoff, but they have to actually be customizing that gel base to begin with, okay? So I hope this helps you guys understand a little bit more about this. It's really, really fascinating, but flash curing is a really important part about what we do with gel nails. It gives us a lot of control over our services and also allows us to even help with things like maybe making mistakes down the road with nail art. We can flash cure those layers into place so that if we accidentally mess up on something, we don't have to start over from scratch, okay? So this is a great question, Kimberly, and I really appreciate you asking this because I think it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. All right, so I hope this video helps you guys understand more about flash curing and all the ins and outs of doing it, especially now that you're able to understand it at a chemical level so that you're able to identify potential problems with different products, different processes, or what have you. I really encourage you guys to take advantage of all of the education I have here on the nailhub.tv. Check out all of the previous nail audits. We're getting up there in numbers now, which is so exciting. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in another video soon. Bye.